and very warm welcome to Dr. Zia Ahmed YouTube channel. Today we shall be discussing literary discourse analysis, and here we shall be able to find how it is possible to unveil or to show or manifest the hidden meanings which are present inside the text. The texts are most of the time literary, and analyzing these texts with respect to the hidden meanings, that can be called literary discourse analysis. So let us see what could be possible problems or changes inside that. For this purpose, first of all, what we should do is to see the definition or the way it can be there. For example, literary discourse analysis is a specialized field that applies principles of discourse analysis to the study of literary text. So two words become important here. One is literary text and that is the principles of discourse analysis. So when we apply principles of discourse analysis to the study of literary text, at that time it becomes literary discourse analysis. Now what does it do? It examines how language is used to create meaning, shape interpretations, and reveal hidden layers within the literature. So there are three things again what it does. First one is to create meaning or to shape interpretations or to reveal the hidden layers. All these three things combine into one by saying that the purpose of literary discourse analysis will be how, number one, the language has been used in order to create meaning, and how these meanings can be used in order to interpret the text and to find out the hidden layers of meaning within the literary discourse. So in that way, the basic purpose is going to have some kind of understanding of meaning by analyzing the literary discourse, and that is called literary discourse analysis. Some of the ways how one can have literary discourse analysis can be called the identification of the patterns in the language use. So the very first thing in discourse analysis, literary discourse analysis should be and is to have the identification of different patterns of language use. For example, the first pattern is lexical analysis. Here we try to examine the recurring words, themes, and stylistic choices to understand the author's intent and the text overall meaning. So what is the basic job done here? That we try to see how language has been used, as language belongs to the words, the themes, and stylistic choices that we shall be using in order to see how these things repeat themselves inside the text. So the very first thing is to see lexical analysis. The second one is syntactic analysis. Here most of the time grammar would involve, I mean the tenses or the voice or the narration, what kind of thing has been used. To identify the grammatical patterns inside the text will be called as the syntactic analysis, as a second step of literary discourse analysis. And same would be the case with the third step, where pragmatic analysis has been said to be done of the text. For example, investigating the intended meaning and context dependent interpretations of language, considering factors like audience and authorial voice. That here something more is to be thought about, that who is going to be the speaker, who is going to be the audience, and what kind of possible voices can be raised by the audience and by the speaker, what kind of interpretations we can get out of that. As the context changes, the possibilities that the pragmatism would say that analysis should also change. As the audience changes, same would happen with the change of ideas in the listeners or the themes or the things which can happen possibly. So in this way, identification of the patterns of lexical, of syntactic, and of pragmatic is the very first step in order to analyze a literary discourse. And then two more important things must be added to that. One is the context, and another one is the subcontext. The context, of course, goes to determine the meaning. These contexts can be historical. For example, historical context means that understanding the social, political, and cultural environment in which the text was written and its impact on the text theme and messages. So what we are going to do in historical context, that we are going to see what was the period of time or point of time when a particular text was created, what was the socio-political or cultural environment in which the text was created, that is to be seen first of all. Then comes the literary context. Here we analyze the text's relationship to the other literary works, yang, on movement to identify influences and patterns. At a larger level, therefore, it means that literary context mean how the text being analyzed can be compared, can be contrasted, can be analyzed, or what type of relationship can be established between the old text and the new text. So in that way, if we do so, we can say that literary context is there. Then comes the reader's context, and that is very important. Text is created, meaning is then done in that, and that can be understood by the reader only. So, how does reader understand? That depends on the background of the reader, the experiences of the reader, and the perspective of the reader. The meaning depends on that person a lot. So, that is the way how the context and subtext become important. Then comes the other step, that means to go to the characters, approaching the characters to analyze. First of all, we shall go for dialogue analysis. I mean, how do the characters express themselves, their relationship, and their inner conflicts through the dialogue? I mean, what the writer has used, the formation, the style, the words, the language, the structures in order to establish the dialogue between the two people, and as a result, it is possible to see the character of a person. Same would be the case of action analysis. In the previous step, we could only think about the dialogue, but here we can see what kind of actions and reactions come forward when such a dialogue is happen. Then comes the internal monologue, and that means analyzing characters' inner thoughts, feelings, and motivations, revealing their hidden desires and anxieties. So it's also about the human being, also about the audience. I mean, what have they been feeling about a particular incident or a particular human being, their feelings, their understanding, their motivations, what has guided them to follow this type of thing. That also comes under character analysis. So dialogue checking, then the actions taken, and ultimately internalizing of the monologue, all these things combine together to create a dialogue for us. That dialogue which can be interpreted as a discourse analysis. After the characters, one can also analyze the narrative structures. For example, analyzing the sequence of events, plots, twists, and conflicts to understand the author's storytelling choices and their impact on the reader. It means that we can also go to analyze the narrative. I mean, the plot, what kind of events are there, what are the twists and turns inside that, what are the conflicts which have taken place, because of which the narrators seem to have adopted a particular type of shape or style. So to understand literary text, it's also necessary that the narrative structure should also be analyzed. While doing so, we can also identify different narrative perspectives, such as the first person, is it the dialogue being done through a first person or a third person or somebody who is all the time present, and their influences on the reader's experience. If this thing is done, that can be the second step of the examination of narrative structures. Lastly, the narrative structures are also concerned with the exploring of the use of foreshadowing, flashback, and other literary devices to create suspense, build tension, and reveal deeper meaning. So here also one's own way of seeing at the things or looking at the things through flashback techniques, that is depending also, that can help us understand the examination of narrative structures. So this step is all about the narrative structure as compared to the other ones. We can also include here in the literary discourse analysis that interpretation of symbols and that of metaphor is also very important. For example, when we try to understand the symbol and the metaphor which have been used inside the text as the abstract ideas, emotional representations, and themes that helps us understand the text deeply. And at second step of the same, analyzing the layers of meaning conveyed through figurative language. I mean, meanings are there, but sometimes the figurative language is used, and that helps us a lot in the conveying of the meaning. That also helps to understand what literary discourse analysis can be there. And lastly, we try to explore the relationship between the symbolism and the character development, setting, and the plot, revealing deeper layers of meaning and connections. So in this way, it will be very helpful to see what do the symbols and the metaphors mean when we are doing literary discourse analysis. After that, we can also think about the critical theory to latest, literary texts. What is the kind of theory we are employing to understand that? One of the theories can be feminist criticism. This means that examining gender roles, power dynamics, and representation of women in the text. And similarly, we can also say that there can be the Marxist criticism also, which analyzes the class struggle, economic inequalities, and social system depicted in the text. It can be post-colonial criticism as well. Here we shall be trying to explore the impact of colonialism, and we will be also seeing imperialism on the text and the characters. So lastly, there will be psychoanalytical criticism as a part of the application of critical theory. For example, here, investigation of the subconscious motivation, theorist and the conflict of the characters becomes important, but one has to beware himself about these things which make the literary text as far as the critical theory is concerned, that how this critical theory, what critical theory is being applied to the given text. One can have a type of case study also by saying that, okay, summary is prepared, first of all, summary of the plot, characters, and the setting of the short story. Later on, we go for the character analysis, then we understand the symbolism, and after that, we explore the themes also. If these steps are continued, the literary discourse analysis would be quite helpful and handier and done so quickly. And lastly, we can see where and how these techniques of literary discourse analysis are used and employed. For example, first of all, these are employed in education, where enhancing of the reading, comprehension, critical thinking, and writing skill becomes important, and our student learns all these things through this kind of teaching. Then comes media analysis. Here, we try to uncover the hidden messages of the propaganda and this and bias in the news and social media. All these things through media we try to understand. And lastly, marketing research, understanding consumer behavior, performances, and up to some extent responses to the advertising and branding. So if this thing is done with respect to marketing, it means that we are following the situation where we will be able to do some market research and let the people know about our results.